Welcome to Better Business Results. My name is John Whitt, and I'm your host. Today our guest is Tonya Page. Tonya is the area developer for FocalPoint Los Angeles and Central Counties. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Tonya, as our guest, as we always do, we would like you to share a little bit about what it is that you're doing and why it is that you do it.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. What is it that I do? I work with business coaches and with business owners to mentor them in their practice, whether that be a business in and of itself or whether that be a coaching business. And the reason that I do that is because I used to be an entrepreneur with a family-owned business, and I understand the challenges that come along with that entrepreneurship when you're growing from small business to medium and large, the challenges of everyday business, and really having the space to think ahead rather than deal with day-to-day crisis. And so one of the things I know for myself is in my partnership, in my family-owned business, had I had a business coach, I would have had a different outlook in terms of my partner, personally and professionally. I would have had a different stance with my team, and I would have probably sold the business for more than I did, and perhaps still own it.
Oh, okay. So when you think about having more, right? Would it have gotten you where you got to sooner or faster as well?
I think it would have been a different path.
A different path. Okay. And then what would you have experienced? I mean, if imagine that you had a coach, the kind of the work that you do today. I mean, what would be imagine the feelings, the emotion that would be associated with that value being a part of your team?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, as especially a medium-sized business owner, when you have a number of people who are depending on you, whether it's a client base and especially a team and staff base, is the pressure that comes along with feeding numbers of families as well as yourself and keeping the success moving forward. And so I think the biggest word that comes to my mind is a relief of having someone else who could help to facilitate and guide what's next. How do we keep the success going? Where are we missing opportunities? What are we doing well that we could be doing even better?
So that relief, I mean, you're able to now give that to your new clients.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that I personally have as a goal is to get to know each individual client on an individual basis. So for some people, it's about growing business. For some people, it's about sustaining business. And for some people, it's about getting out of the business they're in. And so they've had success and they just don't even know how to stop. Or, I want to be done, but I don't know if I have enough here to sell it or to pass it on to the next generation. And how do I do that? It's a lot of pressure for business owners.
Yeah. Well, as coaches, we have the opportunity to provide some solutions in that area that are a little different than maybe some of the other sources that they turn to.
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about your who benefits the most from your product or service.
Okay. So I have a team of 8 plus myself in my area. And in terms of the coaches themselves, people who come on board as coaches tend to be people who are looking for a little more control in their lives. Oftentimes, they are executives who have been outsized, right-sized, downsized. They are in their 50 plus, and they start to look for a job, and they find, some 30-year-old HR person is telling me I'm worth half of what I thought I was worth or what I was making before. I need to be working more hours, and I have fewer benefits, less time off. And that reality for a lot of people is challenging. At the same time, I couple that with people who, and by and large, they're the same people. They understand that they bring a lot to the table, and they want to go out on their own in terms of, maybe I should consult. I don't know if that works. I don't know how to get clients. What if I fail? Where do I even begin on this journey? And who's going to guide me? And so those are the people that most benefit from FocalPoint as a whole in a system.
Yeah, so somebody's looking for some control, somebody that doesn't really understand all those parts and pieces.
Or they understand that they need to be there, but they don't know how to go through them.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about challenges specifically, but share a little bit more, as these people come on board or become involved or engaged, what are the types of challenges, the top 3 challenges that you see them that they have to deal with?
Client acquisition is probably the number one thing.
Okay, how do I get clients?
How do I go out and get a client? Where do I look? What's in my skill base? What am I comfortable with? Where do I put my time and energy and my investment because it can be different for each coach, just like it's different for each
Well,
business.
we have a limited amount of time, right? So learning how to manage that effectively plays a big role.
Right. And why go down rabbit holes that are not going anywhere when you can turn to your own coach and say, here's my skill set, here's what I have to bring to the table in terms of energy. I want to work 60 hours a week, or, I really want to be on the golf course 4 days a week. How do I do this on a limited basis?
That's my thing. I want to be on the golf course 4 days a week.
Who
But we'll
doesn't?
talk about that at another time. So client acquisition, what else?
Client acquisition is one of the biggest. Also, just learning the intellectual property that we bring to the table.
Okay, getting familiar with all the tools.
Right. Brian Tracy gives us numbers of pragmatic approaches to problem solving that can be easily taken out of the toolbox from a focal point perspective, and as a coach go into a business and not have to reinvent the wheel every time, but knowing where to turn. What are my options in terms of presenting solutions to business owners?
All right. I've been doing this for 5 years, and I still learn. There's still stuff I haven't touched from a tool, and I learn new things almost every day.
Right, and the beauty of that is you get to pick and choose as a coach. You can choose which things you want to deliver from products and services, and the things that you don't want to. There's a whole team who are willing to help you out and do some revenue sharing and deliver that for you.
Yeah, well, the challenge is which ones do I do first?
Right.
Right. Okay. So learning the intellectual property. What's a third thing?
A third thing is probably just going out and doing it, knowing the activity,
Yeah.
being activity based. You don't just write a check for a franchise and wait for the phone to ring. It really is what activities should I be doing that brings it all together, whether it's gaining clients or administering to clients. What's the activity that makes sense?
So how do I do it? What are the tools that I have, and what do I actually do?
Right.
Right.
What do I do on Monday morning besides have a cup of coffee?
All right. And how do you solve those challenges?
I solve those challenges from a mentoring perspective with my coaches on a one-on-one basis. All of the coaches bring different things to the table. So we have coaches, for instance, I have a coach in my area who's a 50-ish plus attorney who has one skill set and one knowledge base. I have a younger mom who has 2 young children and has been with the same company for 15 years, grew from 25 to over 200. She has a different tool set. She has a different way that she wants to work. And then I have any other gamut of people that we have on our team. And each person's individual. They all have their own goals in terms of their income. They all have their own goals in terms of what success looks like. They each want to do it in a different way, and they want to work with different people. So from my perspective, I get to know each coach just like I do each client and find out where are you going and how are we going to get you there.
So you have a personal touch. That's going to get into that. What else?
Helping them understand actually doing the system versus going down their own path. We all like to be in control of our own destiny, and sometimes coaches and business owners as a whole will say, I already know.
Yeah, we think we're pretty smart.
I already know what I'm doing. I already know what needs to be done, and that can be a detriment to many people.
It can be definitely a slow starter.
It can be a slow start.
Right. And then in addition to the your personal thing and then going on their own path and helping them steer in the right direction, what else do we have?
Support networks, amazing support networks. And one of the gifts that I think FocalPoint brings to the table, and I try to impart to the team, is I am not the only support for FocalPoint. There are numbers of other coaches that are there to help out. There are lots of online assistance in terms of our great library of learning, and there's also live calls about 4 to 6 a week that a coach could participate in. I always say pick and choose. Let's decide together which ones make
it's like
sense for you.
250 hours a year of additional training and coaching. And
if you got on every call and every aspect of that, you would never have a business. It really
we wouldn't
is,
be able to get any clients.
Yeah,
we wouldn't be able to service the clients.
And that's where it comes back to the coaching, is what's right for the individual, what do they need, and how are they going to get there based on what their goals are and what they're willing to, the price they're willing to pay for time and investment.
And everybody gets a coach like forever. Right?
Forever
It's
and
not
ever.
like a couple of weeks or 6 weeks. There's a bunch of startup programs that are really important and really valuable, but
Yes.
in the long run, there's always a coach because we believe that a coach
Right.
needs a coach.
Yeah, there's a strong start, which is great because it helps you with what's the first activity. but the ongoing support and the ongoing coach is imperative. And I think one of the greatest things about it is it helps the coach to deliver to their client, because they experience that coaching process and they get, oh, yes, there is value in getting clarity into where I'm going. There's a value in being efficient. There's a value in understanding the sales process. There's a value in leadership. They get to actually experience from a receiving end what they're giving as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been doing this for just a short while, and you've got a career that spanned a bunch of years in various other businesses. Tell me about your biggest success story.
My biggest success story, I'd say, was when I was growing my own business about 14 years and started from solopreneur, one individual, ended up with a team of 7, an auxiliary team of over 100. And I think the biggest learning curve and one of the biggest challenges for business in general is staffing and team building. And so the first foray into hiring was not as successful as it could have been. And a small number, luckily, of big mistakes where we got to experience, hey, there's got to be a different path for this. There's got to be a better qualification of the employee to begin with. And we have to understand, what are we going to give to the team member? This isn't a business where they're coming in and earning a 6-figure salary. So what's here for them? Let's understand what we present as an organization and the benefits of the employee, and let's match that employee with those who want that benefit.
So over time, you got really good at that. Certainly
really
much
good
better
at
than in the beginning.
Hiring, training, understanding the sales process that was in our particular business and how to impart that to the team. And one of the greatest give backs was not just in the increased revenue, but in seeing longevity in the team.
Longevity in the team. But let's talk about what were the business results of going through that process and learning that?
The business results were, one, which is one of my favorites, is always the relief. Again, I'll say that again, just that understanding that you have people you can rely on. And as a business owner, a lot of small business owners get into the trap of not believing that they can trust the team to take care of business and to know when to knock on your door, make the phone ring. So there was that relief of the satisfaction and trust of a team. But there's also increased revenue, which is profits. I won't say what it's all about, but it certainly is very important in terms of running a business. And so increased profit of about 40%.
40%, and then over the life of the business, probably 8, 10?
Yes, tenfold, easy.
Tenfold. So, that was a really big success. Getting a lot of people just do, depending what you measure, right? It's all important, right? But everybody measures business success with dollars in some sense. There isn't anybody that doesn't look at that number.
Right.
So, all right. Well, excellent. That's pretty powerful. Then, before we get into our coaching session, share what the surprise benefit your clients get.
The surprise benefit that clients get, or that I should say incoming coaches get, because that's really my main, that's the main people that I support and that I work with. The incoming coaches, they go through this fantastic due diligence process of getting to know FocalPoint. And when you buy a franchise, it's not a matter of writing a check and getting a franchise. It really is a both sides doing due diligence. So the potential coach is getting to know the business, the FocalPoint as a whole is getting to know the potential coach. We want to make sure we're bringing in people who, this is the right business for them. We never want any surprises. We want them to be fully understanding what they're getting themselves into, what the investment is, and what their expected return is. And so our coaches are great business people. They get it. They're able to crunch the numbers. They ask all the right questions. Am I understanding the process? Am I understanding what I'm buying? Am I realistic in what I expect in terms of a dollars and cents return?
Good, making good decisions.
Making good decisions. And they hear, and I know when I went through the process, I heard the same as, wow, these people are really nice. They're really great people, and I need to talk to more people. I want to find the one who's dissatisfied and just doesn't come up that way. And so I think part of that is great. There's a team here, and that's a huge benefit for someone going into business, especially for the first time for themselves, is there's a support network that's not just processes, that there are people involved in that. But once they come on board, the surprise benefit is that there are coaches that care about them. There are coaches that are there for them to answer the business questions. They get to know people in training that they become long-term friends with, and that they really have the not just business support, but the emotional support behind that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we tell the story about support.
Mm-hmm.
We tell it again and again
Yeah.
and again. But then they come on board and it's sort of like, oh, I didn't get it. I didn't get it till I got it.
I didn't get how important that was, and especially in a startup. It's the great thing about franchising is that you're cutting down that risk of failure significantly. That you're not starting from scratch. There's a system, there's a process, there's IP, but then to also have people, the personal touch that goes along with that, and sometimes it's comic relief. It's been a long week, or I have this.
Like, I've been there. I understand. I get it. Yeah. Just knowing that you've got a compatriot, so to speak, that can really relate to where you're at. So that's your practice, and interestingly enough, your practice is, although you're coaching and you're coaching small business owners and you're coaching coaches of small business, you're also a small business.
That's
right.
So
that's what's fun about bringing coaches on board, is because you get to do both sides of this, right? So I'm going to share with you, we talked before about your goals and really capacity issues, and how do I grow my business? You've got 8 coaches now, and you want to you want to grow a bigger practice, have more coaches, and there's only one of you, right? So we talk about how do I leverage, how do I skill that out, and I'm going to show you the mistakes curve, and the mistakes curve is that one, and you talked a little bit about it in your hiring process with that other one, and so as we walk through this, the sort of the mistakes curve and the good decisions curve, share a little bit about your experiences, kick in with that, and then we'll talk about what do we have to work, how does this help you, how can we have this help you identify some directions, ideas, concepts, action items to move you to more success in that area faster.
Great.
All right? Okay. So the mistakes curve starts this way here. It has 2 lines on it. There's a volume line and a time line. Most curves have that kind of thing. And the first most important thing about this is that whenever you start a new task or a new activity, you make a lot of mistakes. So it's a broad batch of mistakes. It doesn't matter. And it depends on the complexity, right? If it's really complex, then you're going to make a lot more mistakes.
Like hiring.
Like hiring, right? But you do, because you don't know. You don't have any experience, right? But over time, right, we gain proficiency. Right, so we learn from our mistakes. We make fewer mistakes. Eventually, we get to this point of some degree of proficiency, and we can influence the size of this curve, the width and the height of this curve, with education. Things like books. We could watch videos. In fact, the internet is huge when it comes to this kind of stuff right now. Right, workshops and seminars. Lots of those kind of things there. And then we also have this thing called coaching. All of those have the ability to impact the size and scale of this curve. Right, and everybody's in this curve. We don't get a choice. We're in it, right? Whether we're coaching people on how to deal with it or we're actually in it ourselves, we all get to deal with it. All right, and what we look at and we say, listen, this is nature's learning curve, right? Trial and error, oldest learning tool in the history of mankind. If you're on this curve, if your employees are on this curve, if your team is on this curve, this is normal, right? And it's good to understand that this is normal, because some people get a little wigged out. They want something different than normal. They want something that doesn't look like this.
They want to be at the top of the pyramid.
They want to be at the top of the pyramid right now. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is normal. Now this curve right here, these 2 parallel lines, this is not normal, right? This is what we have to watch out for. So if we're in the normal curve, we're good. We're just going to pay attention. We'll work on ways to make the triangle smaller. But this 2 parallel lines, this is the failure to learn curve, right? So this is somebody that can't learn from their mistakes. Now, maybe
those were the first couple of employees that I hired.
Yeah, it's very possible, or they're very headstrong, or they don't listen, or so what it is, it's a failure to learn process. Now, it might happen in the very beginning, and it might happen after a week or 2 or 2 months, but this is what we're always on the lookout for. We're looking for this particular, because these 2 parallel lines, do they ever meet?
No.
Never.
And they never improve, really.
So we will never,
more time, more volume.
If you're on that curve, you will never reach proficiency. And so the faster you realize that somebody's on that curve, whether it's you or somebody else, then I got to go do something else, right? I can no longer continue in this particular path. So we're always on the lookout for that. If we see that, we need to change, and we need to change like as soon as possible. Right? So this is the mistakes curve. It's a natural curve. It parallels with this thing called the good decisions curve, right? So whenever we start a new task or a new opportunity, we ask ourselves how many good decisions that we make, right? And now we get this real tiny spot, right? Because we don't know something, the ability to make good decisions is pretty limited. And so whenever we're learning something new, we want to follow a system and a model and a process as closely and as tightly as possible, make as few decisions as possible, because our ability to make bad decisions grows pretty quickly, right? But over time, we will get better and we will learn to make better decisions. And the key here is we start with a real tight process in the beginning whenever we're learning anything, and then we can loosen that process up over time. So when we bring a coach on board and we say, here's the process,
exactly.
Steps 1 to 10, right? We want you to follow that process really, really tight, right? After you've done it for a while, you've done it for a period of time, then you can start to experiment with some other things, but you'll know and you'll have the background from which to make that, and you'll make better decisions as we go along. So these two curves right here, when we talk about the mistakes curves and the good decisions curve, let's talk about how these affect your ability to bring on both your practice mentor, as you were talking about, and your administrative assistant. Right? So let's take just a minute and say, understanding that these two curves exist, right? And you're looking to address this capacity issue. What's the first thing you think you need to do based on that information?
I think in terms of, for instance, bringing on an administrative assistant is understanding what would I want that person to do. What's reasonable?
Okay.
What's reasonable for me to give over to someone else? What's reasonable for me to expect somebody else to understand?
So a list of tasks. Duties.
Sure, a list of tasks, but also a list of qualities in that individual in terms of their ability to think through what else should I be coming back to Tonya with. What is important to her, and so I think that there is not just a task orientation, but an attitudinal
behavior.
Sure.
Behavior.
Sure.
What is the attitude that we need? So what do we got? What are we looking for?
I think we're looking for somebody who's forward-thinking, who's willing to do things on their own, willing to take direction, willing to take on tasks, but also has the innate quality to be able to say, I'm not sure about this, or maybe there's something more here, should I ask? And that's not everybody has that.
Okay. What about things like attention to detail or big picture?
Both. Yeah, I think both are. With an administrative assistant, I mean, you almost want that person who is, I hate to use the word like mini-me, like somebody who gets exactly where I'm going. And then they also have their own satisfaction in fulfilling that.
Okay. So do you need to take some time to kind of write all this stuff down and figure out really what this is?
Yeah.
So and the tasks are the easier part.
I think the tasks are the easier part.
Okay. And then we take a look at the behavior and the attitudes, and then we have to go find this person.
Right.
Where are we going to find them?
That's a great question. My experience is kind of twofold, but I think especially in that assistant space, it's who do we already know, and letting people know I'm looking for this amazing individual, and here's what they look like. Being as specific as we can say to other people that we know, and here's the amount of time I want from them, here's what I'm willing to pay them, here's what I expect in terms of task, and here's what I expect in terms of behavior style and attitude.
So you need to be able to hand them something or provide something that says, this is the picture that I'm trying to complete.
The ideal employee, so to speak.
Right, okay. And then we also have to identify who it is that I know.
Right.
Right? Now when you talk about who you know, how are you going to reach out to them? Are you going to call them all individually, or just what's your approach there?
Well, I'm a huge proponent in social media, so I love just posting things and seeing what comes out of the woodwork. But I also have had really good success with I'll say manifesting what I need by being real open with people. This is what I'm looking for.
And sharing.
Sharing.
Okay. So here's the big question. When are you going to start doing that?
That's a great question. Accountability. That's what I said I was looking for, right?
Yeah.
How about January?
Okay, well, January's not very far off.
How about January 5th?
Okay. And how much time do you think you need to allocate for yourself to be able to put this document, because this is the first most important document, is quote, the job description with the tasks and with the behavioral. What do you need to allocate for yourself to make sure that happens?
I think I would want to set aside about an hour for the first day.
Okay.
And then I'd like to revisit it for about 15 minutes for about probably 4 to 6 days after that.
Okay. Is there anybody else that you'd like to visit it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think those who have been down this road before, and I can think of a couple of people who are, one, considering the same approach in terms of an assistant, and again, and probably I can think of a couple of people who have worked for me before who would be pretty in tune with what I'm looking for in an employee.
Okay. So we've got the job description, we've got the team, we've got social media, we've got a bunch of different things that we can do to get this thing started. We're going to start it in January. We're going to finish it when?
when we find the right person.
Well, give me an idea. What's a target?
Let's say end of January.
End of January. So 30 days. That's
Yeah.
a fairly short time period. So you gotta kind of get on your horse and get after it.
Very reasonable.
Okay. So once you've identified this person, right? Do you think they can do all those tasks and all that stuff perfect right away?
Ideally, of course not. I mean, ideally, yes, but there's a learning curve, and there's a getting to know you curve, and
Yeah, so we had the learning curve. We were just talking about that
Right.
learning curve, right?
Right.
So what do we need them to learn first?
we need them to learn not to make too many decisions on their own first.
Learn to follow directions.
Yes.
Okay, so when it comes to tasks and procedures and stuff, is that something that you have all ready to hand to them?
No, I don't, and frankly, I don't want to do too much in that. I really want to hire somebody who has some significant ability to think through that stuff themselves.
Okay, so they have a process,
Yes.
right? But is it a process, and again, we don't want them to make, you just said, we don't want them to make too many
Yeah.
decisions.
It's a flow.
Okay, so there's a process that they have that they then can follow, and you're willing to adopt their process to a large degree so
Yes.
that you don't have to do it
Right.
yourself.
Right.
Okay. So when it comes to the actual tasks and the services and the support that you're looking for, what's the first most important thing for you?
In terms of their task,
Yeah. So listen, I need you to get good at this first.
identifying opportunity. So I think one of the things for me is just somebody who can sort of be weeding through my inbox, so to speak, and understand what things are important to me and what things they should handle on their own.
Okay. So they know and they can kind of do that. All right, well, good. So you've got that. And you could go through and figure out what the next thing is, the next thing is, and the next thing is, right?
Right.
So you've got the job description, you've got the review, you've got the social media, how am I going to manifest this thing? And then you've got this training thing, all of which have to fit into January.
Well, I don't think training has to fit into January.
Well, but the first and the thing that you're going to get started, maybe not. Maybe it starts if you hire them
Right.
on January 31st. That starts in March, not March, February. Which I've learned how to keep track of the months here. Okay, well, that's.
Well, I think there's a significant possibility that it's a virtual situation as well. So
Okay.
there's a lot of opportunity there as well.
Okay, well, good. So it sounds like we got some action items. You're set.
We do.
We got the 3 that we wanted to get out of the show.
Those sound great.
Okay, excellent. Before we wrap up, what are the top 3 things, 2 or 3 things, 4 things that you've learned as a business owner that would be valuable to our audience?
In terms of the most valuable things, I think, it comes with coaching, with administering coaching, but it also comes with hindsight of having run a business. The pressure to be successful or to maintain where you're at and continue to grow as a business owner can be enormous. And I think the biggest gift that I have received having a coach and that I have missed in not having a coach is that outside relief of here's where I'm going. Is this realistic? What am I missing?
What am I missing?
Yeah, what have I missed in this landscape? I think it doesn't matter if you're providing a product or a service. Business owners tend to be caught up in the day-to-day crisis. They're great at making their widget. They're great at baking the bread. They're great at administering their service. But they oftentimes will, and would be so caught up in what needs to happen today that you're not looking towards that long term of where is this business going, remembering why I started it, and still having fun at it.
And giving yourself a little space and time to
Yes.
spend in that
Yes.
in that arena.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that is probably the biggest thing, is enjoying why you became an entrepreneur and not losing sight of what's the big picture. Am I here to pass this on as a legacy to my family? Am I here to grow it to a certain level and get out and go to Hawaii? Am I here to do this until the day I die? And if that's really what your goal is, how are you paying attention to the business to make that happen?
How are you making sure that you're not getting caught in the weeds, caught in the details, and living the life really that you want to have?
Right.
Yeah. So that's excellent advice. I really appreciate that. Last thing, tell me about your experience being on the show. We met. got a questionnaire, you got some different things. We got the chance beforehand to share a little bit.
Thanks, John. Yeah, that was great. The questionnaire was fun. I knew it was coming. I didn't know what to expect in it, but taking the time to remember, oh yeah, those are my opportunities. Those are the spaces that I, even, as a coach, we have to remember, where am I going? What are my roots? What are my natural pitfalls? What are my natural strengths? Am I playing on my strengths? Am I paying attention to what's the most important things? And I love the opportunity to regurgitate my goals and share, okay, this is what's exciting, this is why I do what I do. And so the questionnaire was really a lot of fun. And then just sitting down with you and having a nice hour of being in that space, again, of being the entrepreneur and having you ask the tough questions and me going, I don't know.
Well, my measure is how often do you say, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Right? If I get that going on along, I've asked a lot of good questions.
Did you count?
I didn't count, but I got a good number,
yeah.
And I knew that I was going. That tells me that's my feedback.
Yep.
That means, I got her thinking. She's working on something. So
Yes.
so I know I'm headed down the right path. And then the whole video thing's pretty simple.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
We'll see the end product.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, John.
Join us again next week. Click on the link below and register to be a guest on one of our next shows. Your video results will be amazing.